Hello and welcome, this is Gunner, and we're back with some more BattleTech and my continued look at the backer beta build and single-player skirmish mode found within. This video will mark the last of the well-rounded builds, not only at this budget level, but overall, at least for the time being. I may revisit this idea in the future, but so far I've done builds at all three of the in-game budget levels, Clash, Battle, and War, and now I'm doing my own custom budget level of 30 million. And for this, because it's my own budget level, I've had to assign the Lance loadout for my opponent, so I will be using the Lance loadout that I showcased in my first video in this series, and I also have to assign the pilots for my opponent. And because there's currently a bug in the game with the multi-target ability where the AI can override some of the game rules and systems, to avoid that bug, I have assigned pilots that do not have that ability. Unfortunately, that ability is prevalent, so I have had to make some compromises with the pilots, assigning them to mechs that is not really ideal for the pilot's skills. With that being said, the premise of these well-rounded builds is that I have one scout, preferably two frontline mechs, and one support mech, and my opponent's loadout showcases that ideal perfectly. For my loadout in this video, though, I'm actually going to do something a little bit unconventional, a little bit breaking the rules of the well-rounded builds. Instead of having a dedicated frontline mech, instead I'm going to be utilizing the frontline capabilities of all of the mechs that I put in my Lance loadout to be able to fill the frontline role, and I'm also going to be changing the strategy of how I use the frontline role. So rather than do what I did with pretty much all of my frontline mechs in previous builds, where the frontline mech would go up front, as the name implies, and tank damage for my weaker scout and support mechs, keeping that damage away from them. In this case, I'm going to use my frontline mechs, or the mechs that I have, in more of an ambushing role, so that they will do hit and run attacks, wait for the enemy to come in and into a kill zone, and then strike, rather than keep my frontline mechs out in a visible position that the enemy can fire upon. I'm going to try and keep my frontline mechs out of line of sight unless a time comes where I have to come in and attack an opponent. So only during that attacking drive will I expose my frontline mechs. So in this way, I have used hybrid scout / frontline mechs and hybrid support / frontline mechs. So the Griffin and Quickdraw are going to be my hybrid scouts, and they're going to be heavier than usually I use for a scout role. The Griffin 1S is a variant of the standard loadout of the Griffin. So the standard loadout of the Griffin has a PPC and LRM-10. We're going to be swapping out most of that firepower, downgrading the LRM-10 to an LRM-5 and getting rid of the PPC altogether, and adding in a large laser and two medium lasers. This changes the role of the Griffin pretty significantly. Normally the Griffin is a pure support mech. Now it's being changed into the role we're going to be using it in is a quasi frontline mech. And its good mobility and jump jets will allow it to serve the scout role we're going to be trying to use it for. Showboat is a scout pilot having the sensor lock ability as well as evasive movement. So if we keep our Griffin moving, we will have a number of evasion charges that we can take advantage of, keeping our Griffin harder to hit, allowing it to avoid damage. Moving on, we have the Quickdraw, which is a heavy mech, and the Quickdraw is going to be pretty well armed for close range encounters. So we have an SRM-4 and 4 medium lasers, and then to aid the mech a little bit in long range engagements, we have an LRM-10. The one weakness of the Quickdraw is its durability. Its durability is not very great. It does not have that strong of armor for as heavy of a mech as it is. To use it in the scout role, I'm using Arc Light. Arc Light has a ability called Master Tactician, which gives her an initiative bonus, making her act like she is a weight class lower than the mech is. So in this case, the Quickdraw is a heavy mech. It will be acting in the initiative phase that a medium mech would. And we also have the sensor lock ability, which is going to allow us to establish a line of sight when we don't actually have direct line of sight. The reason I chose these mechs to be my scouts is at this budget level, you're going to be looking at heavier mechs most of the time. So my opponent has 2 assault mechs, a heavy mech, and a light mech. So the light mech is going to be the only mech that has an initiative advantage over my scouts. So because they act as medium mechs, they'll be going before all of the other mechs in this Lance loadout. The Firestarter is going to be the only one that has that initiative advantage over me. Moving on, we have my support mechs. But these mechs can also fill the frontline role, as I've already said, and that is going to be filled by a variant of the Awesome, the 8T variant. So my opponent is using the 8Q variant of the Awesome, which uses 3 PPCs and a small laser. We're going to be swapping out all those PPCs for 2 large lasers and 2 LRM-15s, giving us very good long-range supporting fire, very strong long-range supporting fire. The strongest, I would say, of any mech in the game. Usually speaking, I would say the Catapult would be my go-to support mech. It would be armed with 2 LRM-15s. The Awesome, this variant of the Awesome has 2 large lasers to aid in that long-range damage. So very strong damage at range. Unfortunately, the only close-in weapon we have is small laser, although the large lasers do have the advantage of being able to be used in close-in. But really, our strong damage is going to be further away. But the Awesome does have a very strong durability, so we can use this to tank damage if it comes to that. So that's why this mech can fill that multi-role capability or position. Alright, with that being said, the pilots I chose for these 2 mechs is Apex and Wildfire, focusing on the support role of the mechs. So Apex has very strong gunnery skill, allowing her to hit targets, and the ability of Breaching Shot is the one that I consider the most important, as if you only fire 1 weapon, you're going to be able to remove any guard or cover status that your opponent has, which is a reduction of damage if they do have that. I also have the multi-target ability, and considering the number of weapons we have, that may come into play. Wildfire is similarly going to have a very strong gunnery skill and has the multi-target ability like Apex has, but also has the Bulwark ability. So in this way, Wildfire is more able to fill the frontline role if needed, because Bulwark is going to allow us to have the guarded status. If we stay stationary, we can still fire our weapons and we get this guarded status. So that can be very good for a mech that you intend to tank damage with. The real downside of the Awesomes are their low mobility. So against an opponent that is going to have higher mobility and going to be using flanking attacks on you, your Awesomes may be vulnerable. So it's the job of the Quick Draw and the Griffin to try and prevent any of that from happening. All right, with that all being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the match. I'm going to be using the same map I've used in all of these well-rounded builds for comparison's sake.
Mech warriors, prepare for combat.
So for me, this is a very much experimental build and a very much unconventional build, but it's still keeping within the realm of what we're trying to do with the well-rounded builds, and that you have a lance that can react to different opponents in different situations. At least that's what we're hoping that this lance can do. All right, so let's go ahead and start setting up our mechs.
Can use the forest to our advantage.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Apex
Yes, Commander.
and Wildfire and put them into the woods over here, keeping them a little bit further back so we have more time to engage the enemy at range. We can continue to move them back if the need arises. And then to get a little bit of separation, I'm going to put Apex over here in the woods.
Position.
And we'll move them around as needed, but if we keep Wildfire stationary, she will have that guard status, which is good. And which is the reason why I'm more willing to keep her or put her in this gap here. As we do want to use the large lasers if possible, we're going to need that direct line of sight to be able to do so, though. Okay, so I think I'm going to take Showboat and sprint her over in this direction.
Coordinates received.
And then we're going to take Arc Light and the Quick Draw, and we're going to put her up on top of this hill to put her in a position where we can... Well, alternatively, we can move over this direction, which may give us an early sensor lock, which may be what we're looking for, although it would possibly make me vulnerable to an attack from the fire starter. I'm going to go for this, but if it doesn't work out, I'll back off and get in behind the hill. So this is an attempt to get a first turn sensor contact.
Let's move.
A little bit rare at this budget level because of the slower nature of the mechs involved. All right, so let's see if we get that sensor contact by moving there. The quick draw and the Griffin have jump jets, so this will allow me to be able to jump out of contact when needed. Now, the reason why I have two pilots that have sensor lock is to allow me to use the quick draw's LRM-10 when that possibility arises. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and sprint back up on top of this hill. Not far enough up that the enemy can get a direct line of sight on me,
Roger.
but in a good position where I can jump in and try and get flank attacks if that possibility arises. We may not get a sensor contact this turn,
Waiting for orders.
but to try and do that, I think I am going to take my Griffin. I don't want to give my back, though, so I don't think we're going to run quite that far. We're not going to have as many evasion charges as I'd like, but this should be fairly good, and hopefully we'll get that sensor contact this turn that I'm looking for. And what we'll try and do next turn is just back off with the Griffin to not expose it. And more than likely, we'll use the sensor lock ability to lock up any opponents we see. So at this point, I'm really hoping that we actually get a sensor lock, because we want to get an engagement early if we can. Oh, I forgot about my other mechs. Okay.
Standing by.
I was actually waiting for the AI to go and wondering why they weren't.
Acknowledged.
Okay, move you there. And Apex.
Standing by.
We'll move a little bit further up so that we can at least, again, see this gap.
On the move.
Alright, now the opponent will be going. Okay, we've got that sensor contact. And it appears the enemy is going over this direction, so Showboat should be okay as far as this incoming turn. Now, again, my opponent will have that initiative advantage on me, and because they had an extra turn, they've got a little bit closer than maybe I would like. Alright, let's see their mechs. Alright, so their light mech is actually pretty far away from me. That's going to be their light mech. This is going to be their heavier mechs here, all grouped together. Okay, so can we get Showboat in a position to actually do much of anything here? And I think the answer to that is no, not really. I would prefer to go after the fire starter if I could, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that without using the sensor lock of my quick draw. So I won't be able to use the firepower of my quick draw this turn if I go that route. I'm still going to go that route, though, because I think that's a good call. You want to usually get rid of the opponent's light mech if you can, if the opportunity is there. Who do we want to go after, though, if we have the ability to go after them? Well, they're all going to... These mechs, my opponents, are all going to be very well armored, regardless of who I choose. I think I'm going to go after the Orion in this case. So we're going to sensor lock up the Orion, which is right here. Removing some of those evasion charges. That was actually a pretty good call, I think. Although, you know, now that I think about it, I should have gone after the heavier mechs, but that's alright. Now it's going to be Arc Light's turn. Now, as I said, I could attack here with my LRM-10s, but I think the better call is to back off a bit here. And the reason I'm backing off is because this Firestarter has jump jets. It could jump in on me, and I really don't want to give it the ability to hit me with its flamers if I can. Quick draws are not particularly heat efficient, so the more I can move away, the better. So I think moving to here or here might not be a bad call. How can we pivot around? We do not want to give the Firestarter a back shot on me. This is actually going to be ideal, I think. But I am going to sensor lock up the Firestarter so that we may have an opportunity here to attack it. Now I have two possible targets with my support mech. So we're going to sensor lock the Firestarter, removing some of its evasion charges, which it has quite a few, making it a fairly hard target here. Here comes the Orion. Now it has used the guard ability to try and mitigate damage because I have sensor locked it. That's actually a good call if you have been sensor locked. All right, so this is going to come down to positioning, really, honestly. So Apex
Commander.
has a 30% chance and a 50% chance here. This is such a bad shot. I think I'm going to end up going for the Orion, which means I probably should have used a quick draw in this case, but I think we're going to go after the Orion here just because the Firestarter is just going to be too hard of a target for us to really land on because of the extreme range. So I'm only going to fire one LRM-15, and this way we'll burn through the guard. I maybe should have held back with Apex because she had the better chance of doing damage here. And in this case, we have a direct line of sight of the Orion, and at this point I could pour in the large laser fire, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off the LRM-15s to save their ammo. I'm going to fire the large lasers instead. And this way, we can pretty effectively burn through those evasion charges and make this target easier for follow-up attacks, although whether or not we'll do that, we'll have to see. Okay, so our first turn wasn't as eventful as I would like. All right, here comes the Firestarter, continuing to do a flank attack here, making it somewhat difficult for me to engage, as yet again, I cannot get Showboat into the position I'm trying to look to get her into. So I may actually just ignore the Firestarter at this point, and instead just try and go for a attack against this Orion, which we've already pinpointed. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put Showboat into a position that we can get a flank attack possibly. Although my opponent keeping together like this is going to make that somewhat difficult. I do realize that I may wanted to wait until afterwards. I should start reserving my turn rather than moving. So that was a little bit of a mistake. We'll rectify that here in the future. So why that would have been a good call for me is if the Orion had moved enough to get evasion charges, we wouldn't have combated it with this sensor lock. So that's why it would have been a good idea to kind of change my move a little bit.
What do you need?
All right, so again, the Firestarter over here is still a potential threat. It is getting closer, but I still think it's probably a little too far out for my other mechs here to really have a good chance against. So I'm just going to go after this Orion as I had originally planned. I'm trying to think what would be the best move here for me. I think continuing to move back a little bit might be a good opportunity for me, as we can. That would give the Firestarter my back, though. So let's try and see if we can move in a way that we're not doing that. So let's say we move here. What I'm trying to do is catch the Firestarter in its flank attack kind of by itself. So we're going to fire off our single LRM-10 here. We have a lot of shots with this, so
Understood.
it's okay to fling a couple of these out, as a quick draw is probably not going to have as many opportunities to do so. Here comes the Battlemaster.
Awaiting order.
All right, in this case, I think we just stay put, and I'll go for the same attack I went for before, so just the LRM-15 being fired here, so that we're going to burn through the guard here, do full damage. Now, I don't think
Waiting for
my
order.
large lasers will still be in range. No, there won't be. So I have to make a decision here, and I think the decision I'm making is just fire one LRM-15 to kind of conserve my ammo, but it's still doing damage out here. Okay. Going to be the Firestarter's move yet again. So at this point, I'm just going to reserve twice. Now, the advantage of reserving twice here is it forces one of the assault mechs here to move. They have to move. Because when I reserve, it puts it into the court of my opponent. So now we know that the Battlemaster has moved here. So we could change our tactic to go after it, or we could continue to attack the Orion. To be honest with you, I don't know if there's much of a difference between the two opponents we choose here. So I think we're just going to take Showboat here, and we're going to sensor lock up. At this point, my opponent is advancing on me so slowly that we're really going to get a lot of opportunities to pick away at my opponent. So we've burned through the evasion charges there. The last of the assault mechs is going to be going, and that's going to be the Awesome, just trying to put itself in a good position to put some support fire on us. But the enemy has not established a line of sight yet, so we're not really in a threatened position here. So what I'm going to do here is just move so that I have a little bit of an evasion charge. And we're in the woods, so if that fire starter ever does show up, we're better defended than we would be if we were out in the open. And we're going to just go ahead and sling our LRM-10. This is going to make the support mechs have an easier shot on the Orion, which is the reason why we're doing it. Okay, now it's going to be Apex's turn, and yet again, we're just going to sling the one LRM-15. So that we do full damage here. And I'm hoping that Wildfire is close enough that we can use the large lasers, which we can, so I'll turn off the LRM-15s. So there's no reason to use those if we're going to have damage reduced. And there we go. Okay, now the fire starter is continuing to go for a flank, but it's still not threatening me. It's so far away from me. It's going to have to jump over this mountain, and that's going to take a few turns for it to pull off. So I think we just continue to focus on the Orion. But yet again, we're going to reserve to force the Orion to move. So if it does move, we can take advantage of it. All right, well, I might as well reserve again.
Waiting for the right move.
Just to put it in the court of my enemy. So this Battlemaster is putting itself into a position to attack me. The hill has prevented it from actually seeing me, but at this point, we're probably going to want to act against the Battlemaster because it's in a more threatening position than this Orion. We've already done damage to the Orion, but I think that's the game plan. Now, the problem is, though, if I move my medium mech to attack the Battlemaster, the Awesome could then counterattack me. So I have to do one of two things. I either have to move somebody else first, and their damage would be wasted because I'd have to use that to establish the sensor lock or something else like that, so that my other mechs could do something. Or I move Showboat, but I do so in a way that makes Showboat hard to hit. And in this case, I think jumping is going to be my best choice. So I don't want the Battlemaster to be able to get close enough to me to be able to punch me. So I ideally want to stay somewhat far away. I think this is probably going to be far enough away, but it's really hard to tell sometimes what the proper distance is for these kind of things. And as far as I understand, evasion charges are not going to help you against a punch attack. So if the Battlemaster can get in on me and do a punch attack, I will be in trouble. All right, so this is where we're going to move. We aren't going to be able to effectively use my LRM-5 at this range, so I will be turning that off, but everything else will be firing here, and we'll be burning through the evasion charges for my allies. Another advantage of attacking from this side is it does focus my damage in on that one side, so I can continue to pinpoint and try and do heavy damage to my opponent here. So the Battlemaster wasn't able to establish a line of sight against me. As a matter of fact, I think I already knew that because of the eye encounter over top of it. So I guess I should have been a little bit less worried about my positioning. But the Awesome wasn't able to do anything against me. So now I can use my other mechs here to attack the Battlemaster. And I'm going to put my quick draw in a position where I can maybe come in here and do some good close range damage. So for now, I'm going to use my LRM-10. This is also going to burn through some of the evasion charges to help out my other allies who will also be attacking the Battlemaster. Now, the Battlemaster does not have guarded status or anything like that. So now is the time to do damage if we can. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my awesome and move it closer to my opponent, so that I can get in there and do good damage. I'm gonna face like this, so it's less likely that Firestarter is gonna get my back, but I am moving further away from the Firestarter, making it even less likely that it will be able to attack me anytime soon. At this point, we might as well fire both LRM-15s because there's no guarded status to get through. And we'll continue to pour in damage on that one side, hopefully being able to take away some of the firepower of that Battlemaster. In this case, I would like to just keep my other awesome stationary so that we can take advantage of the bulwark ability. So we'll just use our 2 LRM-15s here. Yeah, again, we're attacking on one side, so hopefully concentrating that damage. And as we can see, we've already burned through the armor on that side. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to reserve one time so that the Orion has to move, so we can make a decision on who we want to engage here. But we shouldn't allow the Battlemaster to attack my Griffin. So at this point, I'm going to jump away, and I'm going to jump as far away as I can. But I would prefer to put myself in cover or break line of sight if I can, so I think I'm just going to put myself over here. We're going to face our opponent, and I will no longer have line of sight, so I'm going to use this opportunity to sensor lock up my opponent here. Okay, so at this point, the Battlemaster I'm going to allow to move, so I'm going to reserve again.
Reserving action.
And the Battlemaster appears to look to run away, probably to break. Okay, so this has kind of changed my priorities.
What do you need?
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move and I'm going to sensor lock up the Orion. We've done good damage against the Battlemaster, but the Battlemaster turned its other side towards me, so I won't continue to do that damage to the already damaged parts. So at this point, I'm just going to sensor lock up this guy. Remove any evasion charges he has. Awesome will yet again not have anything to do because the enemy has still not established line of sight on me. And at this point, we'll be able to pour in some large laser fire.
Roger.
Again, I'm not going to waste the LRM-15s here. Although there will come a time when I'll want to. That'll probably be the turn that the Orion actually comes out and establishes line of sight on me.
Yes, Commander.
Okay, and you are also going to attack. You'll be a little bit more vulnerable and likely the target of the Orion's attacks. And we're not going to use the LRM-15s as well. We're going to use just large lasers. As we can see, all the damage I've done without actually taking any damage myself. Not even being threatened to take damage. Now, the Firestarter may change all that once it actually finally pulls off its flank attack, but it still hasn't managed to do that. It's still a couple turns away from actually accomplishing anything. So at this point, we're just going to reserve. Technically, Showboat may be vulnerable to attack here, but with as many evasion charges that we build up, we're not going to be that bad off. Alright, we're going to reserve again to make the Battlemaster move. And here we can pick and choose our opponent. Okay, so in this case, I think we're going to use Showboat to establish line of sight. At this point, we won't get the Orion won't have line of sight to me, so the Awesome will not be able to counterattack us here. And because of our initiative, we will be able to out-initiative the Orion, so we'll be able to flee next turn. So this is going to be our turn to pour some damage, or at least through the Griffin, onto our opponent. So we're going to be using all of these weapon systems here. I won't be using the LRM-5. You know what? Screw it. We'll use the LRM-5 because we have a lot of firepower here, although probably running a little bit cooler would be a good call. So we'll just sling our lasers here, and yet again, no ammo expended, so no real consequence here. of this mech having guarded status. Okay, there we go. Pour in a little bit of damage. The Awesome isn't going to be able to respond. And now all of my other mechs can respond here if I so choose. So, I still don't think that now is the time to use my LRM-15s, although the range is starting to get close enough that it may call for it. You know what? Let's go ahead and pour everything we've got here into this.
Affirmative.
Because next turn, the Orion will probably get too close to be able to effectively use all of my weapon systems. So let's use our weapon systems while we've got them. Apex will move back, as there is no advantage to keeping Apex where she is. So we're just going to back up a little bit. And I think the same reason. We're going to go ahead and open up with everything we have here because we might not get that chance next turn. The Orion might be able to move close enough that they'll be able to get within the minimum range of our LRMs. And that's the kind of damage we want to do. Be able to remove the real threatening firepower of the Orion. So at this point, I can move forward and I can do some good damage with my quick draw as well. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And we're going to turn off the... I was about to say I'm going to turn off the LRM-10, but there's actually... I would say no, don't do that. Unless we want to conserve the ammo, which maybe... Because we have been firing a number of shots. We still have 9 shots, but we still also have 2 other mechs. I'm going to turn off the LRM-10. We're just going to fire the close-range weapons in this case. They have a little bit worse chance to hit, but let's just go ahead and do the damage that we've got here. So, continuing to do good damage to the Orion there. We've actually got ourselves in a really good position here. Now here comes the Firestarter. It's eventually going to be a threat to me, so I do have to consider it as a threat. Not this turn, but next turn for sure. Alright, well, we do not want our medium mechs to be threatened here if we can avoid it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move into a spot where... As a matter of fact, I'm going to move my Griffin this way so that we can cover the rear of my mechs from the Firestarter when it comes down to that. This will be a good opportunity to also cool off a bit. And we're going to use our sensor lock ability on the Orion. Now, the reason we're doing this, because we will more than likely be backing off with our quick draw as well, so that we're not taking damage there. I'm going to move here, although I might not break the line of sight I'm looking to break. According to this, I have, but the Orion might be able to move up far enough that it will be able to hit me still. And we're going to sling our LRM-10s here.
Copy that.
Continuing to do good damage. Now the Orion's going to be able to come up and finally establish the line of sight it's been looking to establish. Fortunately, we have reduced a lot of the damage it can do to my Awesome, so that's perfectly acceptable. Okay. So the question I have is, if I reverse, can I break line of sight here? I can. So if I back up just a little bit, the Orion can no longer see me, and it can no longer establish a line of sight for its other mechs. So the other mechs and its Lance will not be able to attack my Awesome. I don't think I'm going to be able to back up far enough to be able to use my LRMs effectively. 60% is still decent, and this guy does not have guard, so this would be the turn to do a lot of damage if we want to do it. I'm going to hold off, though. I'm just going to fire my large lasers in this case. Give us a little bit of a chance to cool off. But also, this is going to give me an opportunity to lay into him with Apex more than likely, because Apex will be able to get a little bit further away.
Standing by.
So, same move here. We're going to reverse. And as we can see, now I'm going to move like this so that the Firestarter is a little bit less of a threat, as next turn it may be able to attack me here. We're going to open up with everything we've got here because this is the turn to do it. We have burned through a lot more LRMs in this mech than we have with Wildfire. We've been a little bit more patient with Wildfire. It's very heavy damage there. And next turn I think we're going to follow up with attacks from our Quick Draw and Griffin, which may do enough damage to take it out. That is if we don't go after the Firestarter. Now, the Firestarter is elected to continue to try and flank here. And not really be a threat this turn. At least as far as I'm concerned, it's not a threat. Now, I could go after it, and more than likely, I'd be able to burn down its evasion charges enough to put some good hits on it, and it is out in the open. So it is a thought that we have here, but what I'm thinking here is the Orion is an actual threat this turn, whereas the Firestarter is not. This does kind of leave me open to possible attacks to the Firestarter in my rear next turn, but I'm really hoping that the Quick Draw and the Griffin will be able to finish off the Orion before it gets a chance to move here, because it's still not going to have guard. It's going to have cover, but it's not going to have guard. So if we can do a lot of good damage now, we will be in a really good position. Now, the Battlemaster may make us pay for this, but now is the time to do the damage. This might be a kill right here. No, not quite. But hopefully Shobo can finish the deal.
Waiting for orders.
So I'm actually going to do a jump here to make myself even more maneuverable and evasive. And we're going to lay into this guy with some good firepower. Now, I could move back a little bit and I'd be able to hit with that LRM-5 as well. Now, I'll just go with our closer range weapons, I think. I'm really hoping this gets us a kill. I don't have the ability here to burn through the cover, unfortunately. Not yet, anyway. Let's go ahead and open up here.
Affirmative.
There we go. That's it. All right, we got the Orion kill. That was the important thing.
Bang, you're dead.
Okay. Unfortunately, now the Battlemaster is going to be on us. And it's going to be able to do good damage here because it just used the focused ability. And it's going to go after my quick draw, so this is going to be very heavy damage on my quick draw. So we don't want to get our quick draw hit anymore. Fortunately, it wasn't enough to really do any lasting damage. Okay, I'm not going to really be able to easily establish a good line of sight here. So what do we got right now if we stay stationary? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and sling the LRM-15s here. Because yet again, now is the time to do the damage. While the Battlemaster is... And that's exactly what we are looking for. That kind of damage. So we have weakened the Battlemaster a little bit. Not enough to... And here's going to be more damage, unfortunately. Okay, we really want to get that quick draw out of a threatened position now.
Aye, aye.
Okay, I can draw a line of sight here. I will more than likely put my awesomes in danger, though. So I think instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and bait an attack from the Firestarter. So I'm just going to move enough. I'm not sure if that's something I can easily pull off. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to attack the Firestarter, but also cool off enough that I'm not threatened by its flamers. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that off, though. We're going to be turning off the LRM-15s. We're just going to be slinging the large lasers. Maybe just one large laser in this case, so we can really cool off quite a bit here so that the flamers are not going to be as threatening to me. We actually managed to hit there. That was amazing luck. Okay, now the Firestarter is going to be able to act. So what I'm hoping is it's going to take the bait against my awesome here, which I think it has. Good. So the flamers may build up quite a bit of heat on us, but I'm hoping with the awesome's strong heat sinks, we'll be able to avoid a lot of that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Arc Light,
I'm here.
and I'm going to use the focus ability, and we're going to try and do as much damage as we can to this Firestarter. So I'm going to use focus.
Let's hit 'em hard.
I'm going to jump. Which side is the side that already took damage? Hold on. right arm. So we want to attack from the right side. So I think I was already on that side. So we're going to come in here, get nice and close. I'm going to keep our left side away from the enemy. Or, I mean, sorry, my right side away from the enemy. Or is that my left side? A little bit confusing sometimes with the picture. I think that's my left side. All right, well, I'm not going to be able to do that. So we'll just jump in here. And open up here. I'm going to take the heat damage as... I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid it easily. And I want to do as much damage as I can against this fire starter. So let's go. Okay, we managed to destroy the right arm, mitigating the damage. Unfortunately, I lost my left arm in that attack.
Can't take much more of this.
Did we lose any critical systems? We lost a single medium laser, so that wasn't necessarily great, but... Okay, now it's going to be Showboat, who gets to go. And in this case, we can't really move in to punch, so instead I'm just going to move to engage... I don't want the Battlemaster to be able to get my back. It might not be able to see me, though. But I prefer it didn't have my back if I can avoid it. I think this is going to be the better move here. We're not getting as many evasion charges as I'd like, but we'll come in here, we'll hit the fire starter with what firepower I feel we can get away with.
You betcha.
We almost took that leg out. And then I'll probably come in and punch with my Awesome, who has built up... Well, no. Not bad heat. Okay, good. That's where we want the damage to be against. Okay. So, Apex is going to come in here and punch the fire starter. Should be a fairly easy target. We'll use the small laser again. And we'll do it from this angle. Melee strike is not as high of a chance as I'd like, but if it does land, this will be devastating damage. Unfortunately, it did not land. So the fire starter will get another opportunity to do damage against us. We have mitigated some of its damage. It could be very threatening against my quick draw, though. So a bit of a risk in what I did.
I'm receiving you.
Now I could go whole hog here and try and kill him. So I think that's exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to move up here, and we're going to sling a couple large lasers and our small laser, and we're going to do as much damage as we can to this fire starter before it gets a chance to go. So, turn off the LRM-15s in this case.
All right.
Unfortunately, one of our large lasers missed, so we didn't really do effective damage there. But here comes the fire starter's a chance to... Oh, okay, it's just going to open up on my other Awesome. I'm perfectly fine with that as we're running just fine on how cool we are. Okay, well, I think we're going to go with Arc Light here, and we're just going to punch our opponent. We got a 70% chance to hit, which is not great, but it's something, and we have a lot of heat buildup, so I want to be able to burn that off. Come on, hit this time. Ugh. If we had landed any one of these melee strikes, it probably would have finished the deal. I think we're going to do the same thing with Showboat, to be honest with you. As, again, heat is a concern. Move there. Oh.
Waiting for orders.
Oh, now we'll do that. So I'm really hoping we land here.
This is gonna be good.
There we go. Get a knockdown. And hopefully one of my Awesomes will be able to finish the deal. Now I do have one of my Awesomes in kind of a bad position. If the Battlemaster is able to get in there and get view of me, it will be my back armor. Okay.
Aye, aye.
So in this case, I'm going to move to put myself in a less vulnerable position against the Battlemaster. Which means I'm not going to be able to punch here, but I'll still be able to use my large lasers and my small laser. So we'll focus on the center torso, trying to get a kill. And away we go.
We'll go.
Oh, come on. There we go. I was going to say, give me that kill. Yeah, the awesome may still have a shot here. I'm not sure, though. Nope, didn't have one.
Yes, Commander.
Okay, we're going to come out here and we're going to establish our own line of sight against our opponent.
Affirmative.
So I have taken a little bit of damage. When I say a little bit, a lot of damage on my quick draw, but I think everything else is we're going to be able to handle okay. So let's just do our large lasers, cool ourselves up a little bit. Good hit there on the leg. Would have liked to see it taken out, but that's okay. The Battlemaster has had a lot of its weapons reduced in effectiveness.
Waiting on you, Commander.
Honestly, I think moving with my Griffin is going to be better than any other move that we can do. And I think we want to continue to attack from this side so we can try and chip that leg out from under my opponent. Let's turn on our LRM-5 so we can see its arc. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a little bit of a bug with the arcs not showing up as they should. I'm going to assume that this will be okay range for the LRM-5.
Affirmative.
And we might be able to, as I said, chop that leg out, which is what I'm looking
Hey,
for.
Commander, I got something on my sensors.
Okay, we'll turn off the LRM-5 because unfortunately I wasn't able to get it in the range I was looking for. Let's just go ahead and fire everything else.
Tell me what to
Come on,
do.
give me that leg. There we go, a little bit more damage on that leg. Still not enough to take it out though, unfortunately.
And there's more where that came from.
Okay, we don't want our quick draw to be able to be hit here, so I think we just back off. And I'll use my LRM-10 at long range here
On my way.
to attack the Battlemaster. Fire away.
Firing.
It did finally manage to take out that leg. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take advantage of that, because the Battlemaster is going to get right back up here. Not going to be able to move much, though, with the bum leg. Enough to be able to still attack my awesome, though. Okay, I think I'm going to start with Apex here. So the Battlemaster is extremely vulnerable right now. So let's put him at a range where we can just lay into him with all of my weapons, except for the small laser, of course. Fire away.
Confirmed.
Now, at this point, we're just looking for a kill, but... Hey, the Awesome is more than likely going to have a shot at this point. At our Griffin, interesting. Which it missed because of how many evasion charges we had.
Waiting for orders.
Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and reverse up here, because I don't think we're going to have our opponent in the proper arc if I don't. We only have... Come on, give me the move. We only have 2 opponents now, one of which is extremely damaged. I'm just going to continue to pour in the large lasers, though, at this point. As much as the LRM-15s are tempting, because we might be able to get a kill. You know what, let's go for broke. I'll fire 1.
Copy that, Commander.
Because we might be able to get the kill I'm looking for. Close but no cigar. Alright, so at this point it's going to be important for Showboat
I hear ya.
to do good damage for me, so... I'm going to put Showboat in a little bit of a dangerous position, hoping we get the Battlemaster kill here. Because if we manage to pull this off... Fortunately, the lasers hit any... Oh, okay, we actually did manage to get it. Alright. Alright, now there's only one guy left. And we do want to definitely get our sensors in range of this guy if we can. So I'm just going to reserve, see if the Awesome moves up close enough so that I can get my sensors in range. And we'll lock them up, and then we'll do what long-range damage we can. So arc light,
Standing by.
not quite with a normal move. Let's see a jump. Like a jump can do it. I'm gonna jump here.
Engaging jump.
I don't think
shift.
we'll be in a vulnerable position, not anytime soon anyway. Sensor lock up our opponent. And now Apex and Wildfire
Standing by.
can pick away. We still have enough LRMs to probably do the job.
Moving to position.
Large lasers, I hope, are in range. Okay, so we're just going to sling one so that we get through the guard. Wait for our opportunity. Okay, now Wildfire has a large laser, so we're going to use those to conserve our ammo. Give us a little bit of an opportunity to cool off some too. And now we've established our guard as well. So if our awesome is the forward element, the enemy awesome only has that to target.
Waiting for orders.
Okay, so Showboat's going to move in here to establish the sensor lock.
Uh-huh.
We also have a focus fire here, so we can do heavy damage if we get the opportunity. So, sensor lock. I think we should keep moving arc light. I'm going to move here, get this bit of terrain in between me and my opponent. Then we'll sling our LRM-10, which we still have 7 shots with.
Confirmed.
Now, the Awesome is going to have very strong armor, so we're going to have to be... It's going to take a little while, but we'll get it. Where are you going? Okay. Do we still have the range here? We do. I'm not going to waste the focus fire yet, just because I don't want to be running hot for no reason. So I'm just going to fire my 2 large lasers while they're still in range. An Apex is more than likely just going to sling the LRM-15, a single one, so that we can
Awaiting orders.
get through the guard.
Roger that.
And I'm happy to continue doing this as long as my opponent is happy to continue taking the damage.
Waiting on you.
And eventually I'll be cool enough and one of my mechs that can unleash most of its firepower to be able to take advantage here. So again, I'm just going to sensor lock up with Showboat, as Showboat has the least ability to do long-range damage. And Arc Light probably just going to stay put and continue to sling out the LRM-10s.
Understood.
We've got 5 more turns where we can continue to do that. The Awesome is going to have to make up its mind here what it's going to do. At this point, I'm probably fine to just pursue, because it's not really being threatening at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and pursue with Wildfire. This does expose Wildfire to fire, but we haven't taken that much damage. So again, I'm just going to use my large lasers until I feel like I can effectively fire my LRM-15. So we're just going to sling those out. Now, if I get a shot with Apex where we're going to use the large lasers, I probably will use the focus fire.
Commander.
I'm just going to move full up. Might be able to get that shot, as I say, with my large lasers. And if that's the case, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. Yep, we're in range, so we're going to focus fire.
No retreat.
And we're going to do full damage here. I'm going to burn through my ammo stores faster, but I think full damage is well worth it. Okay, yet again, we're going to continue to move Showboat to put her in a position where we might be able to get a flank on my opponent.
Commander. Moving out.
And while we move, we might as well continue to sensor lock the opponent. And at this stage, I'm going to move Arc Light up somewhat. up on top of the hill so that we can get a little bit closer and do good damage with those LRM-10s. And I think this battle is pretty much a foregone conclusion because I'm going to be able to continue to pour fire into my opponent without really any threat of damage on my end. So what damage we had that we could take has been done. Unless the Awesome finally decides to come up here and engage, and even then, it's not really that threatening. So, Wildfire here.
Standing by.
He's going to continue to just poke with the large lasers. Will finally be fully cooled off. And honestly, we have enough ammo stores with Wildfire that I think we probably should just start.
Yes,
I'm
Commander.
going to back up a little bit with our other Awesome so that this one is the obvious target for the enemy Awesome. We should still be in range of the large lasers. We're going to turn off the LRM-15s at this point and fire away. Alright, at this point we actually have an opportunity to do some hit and run attacking, so I'm just going to reserve and force my opponent to move.
Reserving action.
Okay, that's going to put Showboat in a perfect position to get a hit and run attack. And I might as well keep myself cool, so I'll walk rather than jump
No sweat.
if I can get away with it. We have a few or a couple of evasion charges here. We'll just go ahead and open up.
Special delivery.
We've already damaged this arm. Enough to remove all of its armor. Okay, our quick draw can do pretty much the exact same thing. Just come in and sling some close range damage up on our opponent, who has no ability to react at all. As a matter of fact, this is going to be our turn to just pour it on. Turning off the LRM-10, we'll fire everything else.
Engaging target.
Okay, Wildfire is going to fire wildly.
Engaging target.
Okay, I don't think we're going to be able to take this guy out next turn, but we're just going to do a little bit more damage here. We're going to play it safe. I'm not going to put my lighter mechs in harm's way when there's no reason to do so.
I hear ya.
So I'm just going to back away with Showboat and sling some LRM-5s here.
Betcha.
If we're too close, aren't we? Yeah, we're too close. So I'll use the sensor lock instead. Just keep this guy in vision. And then Arc Light is going to back off and use the LRM-10s as we have been doing.
Roger.
Continue to pick away at the opponent. So there's nothing left.
Attacking from position.
Okay, so the Awesome here might actually have a target at this stage. No, didn't have one yet. Interesting. Okay, well, Wildfire has already burned through a lot of the heat, so I'm not going to try and do another Alpha Strike with her. Instead, I'm just going to use the large lasers.
Confirmed.
Try and cool off a bit. Okay. And Apex is probably going to be in that position now, so we can use the focus fire. Now, I only have enough to use one of the LRM-15s, but it should still be good damage here. So we'll focus fire here.
Come on, people, let's make it happen.
And we'll attack. Attack. There we go. Fire away.
Target confirmed.
He managed to take out
Scored a critical
most of
hit.
the PPCs of my opponent, if not all of them. Okay, at this point we might as well just reserve until my opponent has to move, because we have an opportunity to do hit and run attacks here.
Reporting minimal damage.
Alright, here we
Good
go.
to go.
I think at this point, rear attacks actually don't make a lot of sense here, unless we do want to do max damage, which there may be a call for. Yeah, sure, what the heck.
Coordinates received. No
Fire away. The reason I wasn't sure of that attack is armor is fresh in the rear.
Standing
So we're
by.
actually almost doing my opponent a favor by attacking him in that way. I'm going to put you at a range that we can do the most damage. That would be probably moving like that. And we'll fire everything we've got here.
Copy that.
Okay, that really good damage.
Got past the armor.
Not much left of the firepower of my opponent. Okay.
Waiting for orders.
I'm going to move in here, and I'm going to try and take advantage of my small laser. And if it comes down to it, I might use punching to try and finish off my opponent. Hey, not... I was going to say, not quite enough, but there we go. Just enough.
Mission successful.
All right. That is the thing that is a little bit challenging just with this. The higher budget levels is just the durability of your opponent. It takes quite a lot of damage to put them down, but eventually we got it. And the only real damage we took was on our quick draw, and as I mentioned, the quick draw is a little bit of a tough mech to use just because of how little armor it has for as heavy of a mech as it is, so you are fairly vulnerable, and you have to make sure to keep your quick draw out of harm's way, but its firepower very much emphasizes close range attacks. Now, we might have been able to get away with it if we'd gotten a little bit luckier with some of our attacks and may have been able to land with one of those melee strikes, especially from the Awesome. If we had landed with that, the Firestarter probably would have been taken out, and we wouldn't have taken as heavy of damage as we did from that Battlemaster. So it's possible we would have gotten away without this damage, but that was a roll of the dice that I was aware there was a possibility of us failing. So you always have to keep that in mind and always be prepared for the consequences in front of you. In any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is Melsgunner, signing out.